Check. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Alright, so I ain't gonna hold you. We're gonna get straight to it. I just gonna read the Ritual 8. Ritual number 8 from Financial Transformation Magic. This is the ritual that I'm currently on. Probably almost halfway through it. So as I said before he gives every ritual, he gives a short chapter right before the ritual, and he tells a story to bring context to what that upcoming ritual is focused on. As I said plenty of time, all the rituals in the book, these are all rituals that's dealing with changing your subconscious programming. Alright? So not rituals about, though they affect shit on the outside, the magic is designed to change you from the inside out. Anyway, let's get to it. So, this chapter is titled Making Money. The first couple times I read this chapter, it kind of is going to sound like he's kind of just babbling, you know what I'm saying, and kind of just yapping to just be yapping, kind of. But once he gives you the ritual and all that, he does bring it full circle, and then like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually a pretty dope chapter. Anyway, let's go. So, making money. By the time I was 14, I decided I needed to make a lot of money. I had no idea how, but I knew it had to happen. Having watched my hardworking parents go largely unrewarded, I knew I could not live that way, worrying about every bill, carefully calculating costs, and trying to stay afloat. The stress, which they probably didn't even realize I picked up on, was too much. I was naive enough to talk about this quite openly, telling my friends and family that I planned to make a lot of money. In response, I was rapidly and enthusiastically told by peers, teachers, and some family members that I was not well equipped for financial success. They gave no explanation. It was as though they thought I should believe them just because they opened their mouths and let the words come out. There was, apparently, nothing controversial about their assertion. It was widely accepted that most people wouldn't do well and that money would be scarce. I didn't let this put me off, but my first attempts at making money were laughable. Instead of getting a job delivering newspapers, I decided to forge money. I didn't think of this as a crime, but as a practicality. I had no desire to work for somebody else, so it seemed natural that I should produce instant wealth by making physical money. My forgery skills were almost entirely lacking. I knew nothing about printing. Metalwork was a little more familiar, and so I set about forging coins. I knew they never looked convincing, but if I could get the weight right, I'd be able to use them in arcade video games, telephones, and gambling slot machines. I knew this was the path to riches. Our school allowed us to use the equipment at weekends if we could show it was a worthwhile project. I lied about my plans and gained access to the metalwork room. I hardly dared to think about the fumes I breathed in, making those coins. I filled my primitive clay molds with lead because it was easy to melt. Lead, however, does not easily form hard edges. My coins looked like a vaguely circular metal mistakes. And they weighed so much that even if I could have jammed them into the coin slot of an arcade game, they would have tripped a weight meter and been promptly rejected. My attempts were such an outrageous failure, but I enjoyed myself, and I learned some important lessons about money. I told my parents what I'd done, as they were fairly open-minded, and my dad said that if I would have asked teachers to show me how to weld, I could have found weekend work that paid 5 times what my newspaper delivering friends were earning. Somewhat pretentiously, however, I rejected this idea because I saw myself as a writer, an artist, and wouldn't lower myself to manual labor. The lesson was clear but also rejected. I think I feared dooming myself to a life of welding. The idea must have sunk in though, because less than a year later I learned soldering, which is like welding, but for small circuits, and I was quickly in demand. Home computers of the most primitive kind were becoming popular, and it was often necessary to solder parts to get them working. I learned a relatively easy skill that was in great demand, and I made a small fortune. And the real lesson here was that we shouldn't resist opportunities, as they never doom us. I stopped soldering after a few months, but I had learned to be flexible, to be open to learning things that didn't feel authentic if they could serve me. And this is essential. Don't worry about that light. That light be tripping, especially when I get to on here talking and shit. And this is essential. Even the poet needs an accountant. But I also learned that crime doesn't pay because my forged coins were so rubbish. Not exactly. Even at school, I saw minor criminals making profits. The older boys sold cigarettes and ran gambling rings, betting on horses, and appeared to be making more money than I could dream of. Crime can pay, but it's hard work. In fact, it's usually no different to working in an ordinary job, except that it has the additional stress of being caught. Those boys made money, but they were so focused on their forbidden business that they missed out on their education. One died young from alcohol abuse, and the other was on welfare, firmly believing he was a professional gambler who was going to get a big win any day soon. Most criminals, I discovered, are at the bottom level. In the case of drugs, that means dealing on the street. Drug dealers often work extremely long hours for nothing more than minimum wage. That certainly doesn't seem worth the risk. But what about smugglers and kingpins? Again, the profits are usually comparable to running a small business, dealing with the pressures of hiring staff and operating in a saturated and massively competitive market. Crime is often portrayed as an easy path to wealth, with TV shows making us envy those white-suited millionaires in their beach houses, surrounded by guards. Does this go on? Certainly, but rarely. Most crime is very similar to conventional profit seeking. It's just like having a job or running a business. The same economic principles are in play. Selling something for a profit, whether it's drugs, protection, or your time and skills, but with additional risk and anxiety. I'm not preaching about the immorality of crime, but the impracticality. You are far more likely to attain wealth if you play by the rules of the current system. The time I spent forging coins made me realize that I was trying to cheat the system rather than to make the system work for me. Crime arises out of a sense of desperation and a fearful belief that you are not skilled enough to make money any other way. Thankfully, this is very far from the truth. You probably won't have to learn welding or soldering, but you may need to cope with temporary situations that are less than perfect to get the permanent riches you desire. The world is overflowing with money, and all you have to do is shift some in your direction. And while you may wonder at this lecture on the need to avoid crime and deception, it does have value. Too many people who could bring wonders to the world settle for deceit. They settle for a life of swindling and shortchanging. You can choose that path, but there is more to you than that. You can make all the money you want without deception or exploitation. And then, when you have all the wealth you dreamed of, you will not only sleep better, but you will have tapped into the truth of who you really are. And that is where the magic lies. Even if you have never had a creative idea or felt you could offer anything, there is more to you than trading your time for money, and the magic in this book will uncover it. If you're confused by the focus on crime and deception, remember that we began with my forged coins. I knew that I wanted a lot of money, but underneath all my hope and ambition, I didn't really believe my time and skills were valuable. Perhaps this was something I already believed, or perhaps my friends and family managed to hammer the message home that money is hard to find and that I wasn't good enough. Whatever the cause, I didn't believe I was valuable. And so when I desired more, I thought I'd have to cheat my way to the top. This is an extremely common reaction. When you have strong desires for wealth, a lack of belief in your own value makes you think you'll have to cheat. The good news is that you will never need to do anything of that sort. Using the magic in this book, you will discover that your time is worth a fortune and that your input into any project or plan can and should be rewarded generously. It can be difficult to know this and hard to believe when you've been underpaid and underappreciated. When society has taught you that you're worth exactly what you're getting now, it's hard to believe that there is more. Remember that the world is overflowing with money. There is no shortage of money, but money is distributed unevenly. It only takes a few adjustments to bring the money you deserve. All right. That was a chapter, and then it goes to the ritual. Ritual number 8, which the ritual is titled Redirecting Money. And here's a summary of what this ritual is for. This ritual reclaims your value and redirects money towards you, not as a reward for overwork or deception, but as a natural outcome of your presence, skill, and potential. It clears internal beliefs that say you must cheat, hustle, or play small to survive, and replaces them with the calm certainty that money flows when you allow your worth to be seen. The magic taps into the endless stream of global wealth and begins to bend that stream in your direction, subtly at first, then more boldly. It doesn't promise instant riches, but initiates a shift where you begin to attract opportunities, attention, and payment simply by showing up as who you are without disguise or distortion. So the ritual lasts for a total of 19 days. Here's the sigil. Yeah, only thing I can speak to that is just something that I've been saying. It's since I started this magic, definitely my entrepreneur ventures my personal business is definitely picking up. It's been picking up and it's constantly picking up. Just today alone, I got 2 messages. Out of those 2 messages, it was like a total of 4 dates that they was wanting to book me for, pay me for. And that's been a lot more consistent, definitely. Definitely. So I've been trying to pay more attention to that area of my life and start to really invest some more time and to invest some more energy into really developing it and really getting behind it and believing that this thing can actually happen in a big way. Is really the first time, and I've been at it for 4 years. And really, this is the first time after 4 years where I'm really feeling it, where I'm feeling like, oh, okay, like I'm finally really seeing like that, no, this thing can really, it really has the potential to be everything I need it to be and more. Yeah. I just really got to get behind it, get behind the magic and keep pushing and keep opening up different avenues for the energy to travel, to manifest in my reality. So yeah, I ain't gonna do no other talking, but again, the book Financial Transformation Magic by Damon Brand from the Gallery of Magic.